Bombardment of the vanity. The U.S. president-elect's character attacked by Hollywood's leading lady. But it was Donald Trump's ego that took the hit last night. I'm Brent Goff, and this is The Day.
But there was one performance this year that stunned me. It was that moment when the person asking to sit in the most respected seat in our country imitated a disabled reporter. It kind of broke my heart when I saw it, and I still can't get it out of my head because it wasn't in a movie. It was real life. Disrespect invites disrespect. Violence incites violence. When the powerful use their position to bully others, we all lose.
Also on the show tonight, Adolf Hitler's autobiography, Mein Kampf, his blueprint for Nazi domination and the Holocaust, was banned by the Allies here in Germany 70 years ago. That ban ended last year. Guess which book is a bestseller all over again? That story is coming up later on the show. We begin the day with an overrated Hollywood actress and the dishonest media. Well, those are the tisk tweets posted today by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. All too familiar, you may say, and perhaps all at the wrong time. Congressional hearings begin tomorrow on Trump's cabinet nominees. And the country, and the world for that matter, well, they're still processing that report last week that accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of ordering cyber attacks to impact last November's presidential election. All of that, and Donald Trump has his tweets and his thoughts targeted on Meryl Streep and the media for reporting what she said. Streep, by the way, never once mentioned Mr. Trump's name last night at the Golden Globe Awards. Our coverage begins right there in Los Angeles.
It was the night that Hollywood turned political, serving up digs at U.S. President-elect Donald Trump.
This is the Golden Globes, one of the few places left where America still honors the popular vote.
Comedian and host Jimmy Fallon was just getting started. Next up was Meryl Streep's character from the film Florence Foster Jenkins.
The character has been dubbed the world's worst opera singer, and even she turned down performing at Donald Trump's inauguration. It's tough to book. It's tough to book.
Bravo! It was wonderful, Bunny.
Want to try another take?
Well, I don't see why. That seemed perfect.
Later, when Streep picked up a Lifetime Achievement Award, she too took Trump to task, saying his mocking of a disabled reporter early in the campaign stunned her.
It kind of broke my heart when I saw it, and I still can't get it out of my head because it wasn't in a movie. It was real life. And this instinct to humiliate, when it's modeled by someone in the public platform, by someone powerful, it filters down into everybody's life because it kind of gives permission for other people to do the same thing. Disrespect invites disrespect. Violence incites violence. When the powerful use their position to bully others, we all lose.
Trump soon shot back, calling Streep, quote, overrated. Meryl Streep has won 3 Oscars and 3 Golden Globes, among numerous other awards in her career.
And there's more to that story. To talk about that, I'm joined now by Courtney Ross, who is Advocacy Director at the Committee to Protect Journalists. She joins me from New York City. Courtney, it's good to have you on the day with us again. You know, the CPJ made headlines last night when Meryl Streep mentioned your group. Let's take a listen to what she said last night.
We need the principled press to hold power to account, to call them on the carpet for every outrage. And so I only ask the famously well-heeled Hollywood foreign press and all of us in our community to join me in supporting the Committee to Protect Journalists, because we're going to need them going forward, and they'll need us to safeguard the truth.
Clear words right there, Courtney. Calling on your group to protect journalists, people like me, and to protect the free press in the United States. Talk to me about the threat in the United States right now. What is Meryl Streep talking about?
I think what Meryl Streep was talking about is the environment for press freedom that is created when leaders in any country decide to disparage the press or attack the press. This is sadly something that we see is all too common around the world. We've seen this, in the Philippines. We've seen it in Turkey. But what we saw last night is a recognition that things look like they've gotten more difficult for journalists in the U.S. And as the Committee to Protect Journalists, we've typically focused on, working on behalf of our colleagues around the world who face death and imprisonment for the work that they do. But, more recently, we have had to look closer to home. But, we are a nonpartisan nonprofit organization, and we actually did a report on the Obama administration and the press and looking at that promise to come in and be the most transparent in history. And we're going to hold the Trump administration to account as well and make sure that we're reporting on any violations that occur.
And what about Meryl Streep's appeal last night to the foreign press to report the truth about what's happening in the United States? I was surprised and then again not surprised when I heard her say that. Is the foreign press's ability to save the fourth estate in the United States, if you will, is it being called into action now?
That's maybe what Meryl Streep was doing. I think that all journalists have a responsibility to, do what they can, but more importantly, that leaders have a responsibility to ensure that journalists stay safe. And what we see over and over again around the world is that when leaders and political figures and others create an environment where it appears that attacks on the press are permissive or, where they don't value press freedom, that we see this have an impact on journalists. And so, I think it is important for foreign journalists as well as local journalists to report on what's happening. But we also know from our research that foreign reporters are also, often under the most pressure. So I think, the more attention we have to the plight of journalists, to protecting journalists and the importance of press freedom, the better.
Let's talk a little bit about the scene in South Carolina that Meryl Streep mentioned last night. I want us to take a look at what Donald Trump said about that New York Times reporter, Serge Kovaleski, and how Donald Trump said what he said. Take a listen.
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said.
Now, Trump has tweeted today that, again, he has said that he was not making fun of the reporter's disability. The reporter does have a disability where he is not able to control the movement of his arms. And it's clear that what we saw there is someone making fun of someone's condition. How does the media, Courtney, how do you deal with blatant and obvious untruths that are being pushed as the truth by someone in positions as high as the U.S. president?
I think that is a question for journalists who are reporting on a vast array of issues. What we do at the Committee to Protect Journalists is that we report on violations of press freedom and safety of journalists in repressive countries, conflict zones, and in established democracies like America. It is important that we are always accurate and that we are reporting on the violations wherever they occur. But, it's not our role to speak about, what journalists should or should not do. But to be clear, we're protecting journalists. So false news is not news. It's not journalism. So, that doesn't really fall into the purview of what we focus on.
But the situation, though, when you do have a situation where you have a proliferation of false news or fake news or, or lies, that environment automatically breeds a hostile environment to the truth tellers. Are you sensing that? Are you hearing that in the United States, that when reporters, Cub reporters go out to report on a political rally, something that would be standard, fair for a journalist in the U.S., that now they feel that their own personal safety is in danger?
I think that we are seeing, concerns from journalists about their personal safety. We know that there were, organizations on the ground and journalists on the ground during the conventions, and of course now upcoming with the inauguration, who were concerned about their safety. They took safety courses in advance. They were there and prepared with, tear gas to be prepared to, combat tear gas or deal with protests. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that journalists are aware of how to keep themselves safe in civil unrest. We have a journalist security guide on our website. We have it in multiple languages, Spanish, French, Somali, and of course English. And what journalists need to do is to be prepared to understand when they go into any sort of environment, whether that's in the US to cover a protest, to cover an inauguration, to cover any sort of issue, that they're aware of the situation on the ground, what the environment is likely to be. And sure, if it is becoming a more toxic environment where the role of the press is not understood or respected, it can become more dangerous for journalists. And so it is important that they protect themselves, and we are here to help make sure they do that. We're putting out an alert shortly in advance of inauguration.
Okay, yeah, I was about to ask you that heading into next week, if it's going to be a tough time, which of course you say it probably be a time to be on guard. Courtney Ross there with the Committee to Protect Journalists, joining us from New York. Courtney, thank you very much. You're doing very, very important work. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.